everybody. Thank y'all for coming today to join us with the last lecture series in our 2-day lecture event commemorating the opening of the Maya Hidden Worlds Revealed exhibition at the UTRGV Visitor Center, which will be open from October now until January 2018. And it's been a very exciting interdisciplinary collaboratory experience to work with the College of Fine Arts, the College of Liberal Arts, and the College of Science to bring Drs. Ron Bishop, Dr. Erin Sears, and Dr. Michelle Rich to UTRGV. And I'd like to now introduce our first of two speakers, Dr. Erin Sears. Erin received her PhD from the University of Kentucky in 2016. Her dissertation provides the first illustrated catalog and comprehensive analysis of the late classic Maya ceramic figurines from the site of Cancuén, exactly, located at the headwaters of the Pasión River system. Currently, she is a member of the Proyecto Salinas de los Nueve Cerros archaeological project in Guatemala that is focusing on recovering regional social patterns in comparison to the ancient Maya salt production facilities. Her newest publication concerning ancient Maya figurines is now officially out in the Oxford Handbook of Prehistoric Figurines, edited by Timothy Insall. Please join us in welcoming Dr. Sears.
So, there are many ways to observe late classic Maya ceramic figurines. We all have different ways, and in part, the ancient pre-Columbian cultures have talked about ceramic figurines in the Popol Vuh in their creation stories. So, the first level of creation were the animals. And then secondarily, the gods created the first set of humans, but they were created out of mud. And unfortunately, a flood took them away. Archaeologically, we have different ways of looking or describing ceramic figurines. In 1965, Robert Rands and Barbara Rands described late classic Maya figurines as realism, elegance, and refinement from their predecessors, that is, the Olmec figurines. And now we're looking at small-scale indices of large-scale social phenomena. But I also like to have it, a little bit of, regular folk. I also like to call them fabulicious. They really are, because they describe, just within a very short amount of visual cues, they are at the height of a creation of imagery that describes the Maya culture. So, if we look at how we as academics like to use big words such as, reflection, embodiment, hegemony, gender, really we can just look at how we use figurines in our everyday lives, and assess at how ancient cultures do that themselves. We have marketplaces where they're sold. Over to the right is my close by pharmacy. They actually sell ceramic figurines. They also are collector's items, and at times they are brought together in sets, in groups, and they are placed in different areas. And our own societal use of figurines has meaning, and it's an internal meaning. It's a meaning between two people. It's a signaling. So whether it's a celebration, a 50-year anniversary present, or a present for somebody's amante, or a marking of a birthday, these are individual meanings between families, personages, but they're also within context, and that's where we have that ability to potentially see that in the ancient world as well. So let's take a case. If you're, I'm not buying this, this bit about how we can relate to it. Well, we do use figurines in our everyday lives. So let's look at one tradition of having a wedding. So we do have cake toppers that are ceramic. They last forever. They are in a marketplace. And sometimes they have tradition where they are passed down from generation to generation. Heirloom. So we do have, and they can also create a sense of meaning for the family or the couple. So if you look over to the left, you have a very traditional sense of what a marriage cake topper is. We also now have men and men, women and women, which I think is great. You also have comedic imagery as well. Catching the groom is always a good one. I always like the hunting ones. The ones that she bagged and then they have the deer running free is always good as a cake topper. It also signals the next stage in your life development. Back in the 50s, I don't think you would have had a pregnant cake topper, but that's another way of expression. We also have the denouement of a style, too, as well. And that's what archaeologists look at, as a tradition in using material culture. So Martha Stewart has had, within the last 5 years, this new tradition of we don't need cake toppers. So what do you do with that afterwards? Do you throw away your cake topper? Do you pass it on to your child? Or do you do, cupcakes? So then you really don't need another cake topper. So it's one of these things where the tradition of the wedding industry is actually changing right now. So we can actually mark that in our lives. Go ahead, please. Sorry.
Dr. Bishop?
Yes. Can you hear?
The mic went out.
Oh, dear.
Maybe if you could project a little bit more, I don't know.
Yeah, let me see. Can you hear this? Hello?
I think the light went off.
The light went off? I'm sorry.
No, you didn't touch it. It just died.
It's on again, Kathy.
Oh, is it?
No.
Hello? No? All right, I'll yell. I'll try.
We're gonna work on it, but just talk loud. Okay. Sorry.
Can you give me my glass of water? That's all right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so I will yell like I'm yelling at my husband. That'll be good. That'll be good practice. So we can see how, like in our own lives, we use these ceramic effigies to reflect how we project intent and meaning. And that's the same in the ancient, late classic Maya society. Here again, here's a marking of somebody's age in a marketplace. And we have an elite lady in Guatemala. Next one, please. So, for those of you who are new to the Maya area, the Maya civilization is located with... Can you go back? There we go. The Maya civilization is located within the modern states of Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Western Honduras, and Belize. The civilization flourished during the late classic period around 600 to 900 AD and is known for the creation of numerously heavily populated centers in a rainforest environment where cut stone structures were erected for different levels of stratified classes of people, the transfer of political information through a particular writing system, and the movement of market goods through tribute obligations. Ceramic miniature figurines are one of the many archaeological materials left behind in this ancient society that not only reflect chronology, but also stylistic, aesthetic, and manufacturing preferences at various sites. They are one of the few ceramic media that portray Maya human figures in active settings. Additionally, you have polychrome ceramics over to the left and incensarios for ritual purposes in the center. So next I want to talk about how we as archaeologists look at this particular material. And part of that is that we look at it as a technological aspect and various differences as well. So figurines are also known to have, they are also made as whistles. And as you can see, this particular god figure has holes not only in his belly, but in his back. And you can put the mouth, your mouth goes right up on top, and it actually makes music. Additionally, we have flutes that have particular animal imagery, and we also have ocarinas or combination whistles that have, this particular one from Conquen over on the right-hand side has both a whistle in its wing and in its back feathers. What is generally created for the ocarina holes, what you will normally see along the Usumacinta and the Pasión River system, are these two ocarina holes in the back and a whistle mouthpiece at the very bottom that acts as a support system. And if you turn it upside down, there is the whistle vent. Now, if you take that and look at that regionally, there are stylistic differences in how figurines are produced. In Yaxchilan, over on the Usumacinta River system in the middle part, and in Washaktun up in the upper Petén, there's somebody that prefers, instead of cutting out the holes to make the ocarinas, a popsicle stick. So each area has its own preferences in how to create these figurines. Additionally, the way that the whistle vents are done as well have a preference. These are in the upper Usumacinta system in Hunuta, and Conquen only has one, which is there up in the upper Pasión, but Palenque actually has both, where the whistle vent is on the backside and underneath. So you can see that transition of how the production of these figures are being made. To talk about how figurines are created, they are first made by molds. We don't have the positive imagery of how they created them, but we kind of assume that they were the image was first carved out with a soft wood or maybe a beeswax, and then a ceramic blob was placed around it, then fired. So what you see is the front part of the imagery is mold made, and then they hand model the back piece for the whistles. We also, and you can the mold system is all up and down the Pasión and the Usumacinta system. We also have a secondary set where they are a combination of the bodies and the faces are mold made, and then the arms are hand modeled. And additionally, too, I just discovered that we have mobile figurines in the site of Conquen, which is very unusual as well. Another technique that Bob Rands discovered in the late 1960s is the use of the tenon head. And so what happens is that you have the body as a mold made, and then the neck is usually hollow, and you stick the head in, and then you use a applique piece of clay, make a beautiful necklace to actually cement the head into the body. And so that gives the producer the ability to create headdresses or different hairstyles, but it also keeps the face kind of uniform. So let's take a look at how Maya communities view different stylistic presentations of different images and ideas. As you can see, in Haina, they have a different way of looking at the couple figurine, and in Conquen, it is a different presentation. So it's quite fun how these various communities along the river, it's a form of communication. So that's, besides looking at the differences in technology, the art history or the archaeology both look at style, and this is what we would call style at this point. We also look at this a way as a technological approach, and so we can compare ceramic figurines with their chemical analysis, and that way we can see trade and exchange patterns. For me, I use compositional analysis, and that begins by acquiring a powdered sample from the interior part of the figurine. And as you can see over on the left-hand side, it kind of feels a little bit like you're doing surgery on this poor little formative torso right there, and it does sound like you're getting your teeth drilled. And so you take that little powdered sample and encapsulate it. You put it into the nuclear reactor. You get the gamma spectra, and that gamma spectra is sorted, and according to their energy and counting, the elemental abundance is obtained. And then we actually, with a known reference standard, we actually are able to create a chemical fingerprint for each item. And in that way, we can determine whether we have movement of goods from one site to another. For much of the presentation, I'm going to turn my focus to the headwaters of the Passion and Shoshone River systems. And in this lecture, I want to combine both excavated examples and collections from museums to see how we can determine what's going on with the Maya within this region. Oops. So I'm going to talk about sites within the Alta Verapaz region, such as Chama and Chipal and Salinas de los Nuevos Cerros. But I've been principally working at Conquén in the headwaters of the Passion. And all of these particular areas, sites have political affectations as well as different life histories. Go ahead. So first, let me go roll back a little bit. When I first started in the late or early 2000s, Vanderbilt University had excavated at the site of Dos Pilas in the Patish Batoon region.
Speaking of Pilas.
Oh, yay. How's it going? Can you hear me now? Oh, that's even better. Yeah, so sorry. Yay! Sorry. I think, oh, yes, that's much better. Okay. Actually, let me put that over here. There. Okay. So they had created a detailed map of the site, and as they were excavating, they found a large palace structure on the outside of the entire palace, elite palace context. And as they were excavating, they found a panel in a close by residential section, and what it described was one of the political connections between the site of Conquén and the site of Dos Pilas. And this panel is the epigraphic evidence of how these two sites came together. The Lady of Conquén on the left-hand side was sent by the elite and married Dos Pilas ruler 3, who's right next to her, and they had a son, Dos Pilas king number 4. So there was already intermarriage within the elite system. Go ahead. So at this point, when we started excavating in Conquén, we knew that it was the Kingdom of Snakes. We knew that it had been previously explored through a Harvard vacation break from Ceibal, and then it had been relatively left alone throughout the wars. The Civil War. And when we got there, it was quite interesting how the looting and other activities had been taking place in that area. But it was relatively intact. Throughout the years, what we've discovered through other panels and whatnot was that Conquen really was the controlling node at the headwaters of the Passion in the Late Classic region. Starting around 656, it became a client kingdom of Calakmul. So that was actually to keep the Dos Pilas kingdom in check. But then as time went on, those relations smoothed over. And it definitely created a lot of networking within the region. If you look down at the very bottom of the left-hand slide, Rashuha Viejo, there's a system of caves within that area, and we kind of believe that that might be the ritual area in which pilgrimage is taking place in different time periods. So we have community relations along the riverways, which is great. Oh, he's supposed to be sleeping. So let's go ahead. What I want to do right now is take you through some of the contextual aspects of what I found in Conquen. And one of the most spectacular discoveries was a burial by Lucia Moran Haraca in 2000. And she found this mortuary burial underneath a large residential complex to the south of the palace. And it was a wonderful... It's one of those things where, as an archaeologist, you always find the goodie at the very end of the season. And sure enough, that's what she did. And so she actually had to come back in 2001 and dig the other half out of context. But what's very interesting is you can see the burial is in the center. They're surrounded by figurines, and it's a child burial. We don't know the actual sex. The bones, unfortunately, were very eroded, but there were 2 ceramic vessels that were smashed on top of the burial, and then you have these 4 that are surrounding the body. A fifth figurine, the one over to the very far right, was found in the bulk wall, and further excavation did not find a body. So let's look at this technologically. So by sampling these particular figurines in context, I was able to determine that the four of the orange-colored figurines come from the site of Rashuha over to the west, and that the figurine to the right actually comes from Conquen, and that actually has that's a good foundation, and it tells me some other ideas according to intent and style in mortuary analysis, but we'll come back to that shortly. As well, we have it's quite fun to look at these pieces as, because they are from context, they have the ability to talk to other ideas that Mayanists have. And what's quite fun is that, back in the day, there was a University of Texas Austin grad, Mary Ellen Gutierrez, and I would love to talk to her later. She had a master's and her PhD and then went on with her life. But she made this really seminal statement just looking at the Maya polychrome. And she noted from all the polychrome pieces from different from different museum collections, that there was a winner and the loser of the ball game. And so what was quite fun is that for me, the figurine in the upper right is a deer headdress ball player. And what she was noticing in her figurine or ceramic collection was that the deer-headed headdress ball player was actually the loser of the ball game. We also have figurines that are guarding. You have the warrior up on top. and watching. You also have figurines that are in transition, which is very interesting. You have the warrior at the very bottom right, and not only does he have a removable headdress, but I always like his back end. Sorry, he's having. The other one actually has the jaguar tail coming out, and he has a wizard headdress. So go ahead. We also have evidence of, because this figurine comes from Kangquan, most likely this is an example of a figurine that is of the king. We were able to have in the Eastern Ball Court, lucky sometimes that a hurricane comes through and it just demolishes a certain area, pulls up stuff from the roots. And this ball court marker actually popped up fresh. And from the glyphs, they actually say that Kangquan actually overtook and it had an agreement with the river city of Machakila. But this is the altar actually has an image of Taj Chanak, the ruler of Kangquan, as a ball player figurine. So not only is he a ball player, but he's also the winner of the playing the ball game, because he has, as you saw, the deer headdress is the loser. The winner, Gutierrez said, was the bird headdress. So maybe we have those kind of stylistic inferences. And maybe this particular group who had this burial, it also, because they're so close to the palace, possibly it was a signal of obeisance to the king. So in the northwest residential structure in the palace, underneath the floor, there were lovely rocks and this beautiful bird that was smashed onto the rocks. And chemically, it comes from Salinas de los Nuevos Cerros. Possibly what I interpret is, underneath the house floor, maybe this is a sign of real estate where, these people had come in. They didn't have an ancestor that had passed away, because that's the normal tradition of a Maya mortuary pattern, is that they bury their ancestors in the center axis of the house. That's exactly where we found the burial that I talked about previously. But unfortunately, probably migrating into this area, all that they had was their figurine, and so therefore they sacrificed it as a way of claiming title to the area. Settlement patterns in Kangquan can also reveal other discoveries of figurines, and even though Kangquan is surrounded by water in the Passion system, they still have this need for water catchment systems in and around the palace, which is in the lower center part of the slide, and in elite residential compounds. One would think that you could pump water from the riverways, but for them, having a catchment system, an aguada, is also part of their religious environment, and it also shows how much the Kangquan elite are in tune with their environment and the ability to control their environment. Again, this is Taj Chanak from panel number 3, found at the ball court, but he's also, I just love how the Maya do their little feet. You can see how they do the instep so well. But he's also incorporated with a water lily cartouche, which is the signal that he is the Lord of the water, and also other water elements in his crown, as well as him sitting on a lovely water lily cushion. So let's look at some of the examples. I have examples of men from that are standalone, which I think is another production mode, as well as dogs and women with their animals that they would take care of in the household. The standalone man, the figurine that is can stand alone with the on its own 2 feet, is a very common type in Kangkwen. There was another one that was actually found in a pyrite workshop to the south of Palace, and what I like about him is that he has not only his own mask of the corn god, but he also has a little Kaiser helmet as well. So we have these particular pieces where the mobile, they're not the headdress, they're interchangeable, which is kind of interesting. This particular piece, this is quite fun. This is a unique eroded piece that was found in that northwest Aguada, and it shows a female sitting on top of the shoulders of an older male. So the standard Usumacinta presentation is one of the man shoulder to shoulder, and he's lasciviously pulling down her huipil. And you see that throughout the different city-state centers around both the Passion, and it's very popular in Haina. But this particular one actually may lend itself to some comedic relief. So you can see the different variation from Haina all the way to Machakila of that side-by-side version. The ones that are on the shoulder are quite interesting because this piggyback arrangement are found in non-provenience examples in Campeche and as well as Washoe Tune, but they're also found on painted polychrome ceramic vases. In the polychrome version, Justin Kerr infers that carrying of an elite woman on the shoulder of men as well as the entourage may be part of the performance of marriage rites. If the imagery of this particular piece is correct, it is interesting to see that this figural program depicting the cyclical nature of life concerning virility and impotency is ending in the Aguada, and might be part of a representation of the cyclical nature of Maya society. So not only do we have a sense of representation of water and ritual, but we also have a cyclical nature in these figurines as well. So in the northern Aguada, just above the north of the palace, there's a stream that leads to the west, and there were some lovely pieces of a wooden paddle and other objects that are normally not found because they're just so they just don't survive so long in the rainforest region. But we also found some interesting figurine pieces as well. So at the top, that is a male warrior with a feathered monstrous headdress. And at first I thought it might be similar to pieces that I had seen in the Patish Batoon region, but actually chemically it looks like it is made within the area of Kangkwen. The next, it looks to me, I also thought this was a Patish Batoon piece, but it is a feathered warrior with a grotesque face mask, and it actually comes from the Machakila area. And we also have warrior examples from Kangkwen as well. So we have the sense of warfare being imbued in these pieces as well. Additionally, from this particular Palace Aguada, we have possibly an instance of another imagery of a Kangkwen king. This one has the Maya blue painted all over the feathered headdress. In the late 2000s, I was able and very fortunate to find a tomb to the southwest of the palace, and found panel number 2, which was depicting Taj Chan Ak receiving his Kawil scepter, and from his father in 757 AD. It was surrounded by lovely jade beads and jade ear spools. And what's really nice is that I actually found these jade diadems. And right in the Guada to the north, I think that we actually have a reflection of the king. So at this point, what's really neat is that taking the diadems to other scholars, David Friedel thought that what we're seeing at this point in the diadem is the king glyph, and it has the imagery and connections to the sun god. The imagery of the bowl, the little epaulet at the bottom, is the actual representation of the glyph ol, meaning in the center of, and the bowl is interpreted in the physical manifestation of the portal from when sacrificial elements are placed within rituals. So let's, sorry, I want to keep rolling, but basically I want to let you know that at the end of Kong Quen's reign, there were a lot of misfortune. Around 810, there was a massacre, and we don't know who came in, but with all of this force of trade and exchange of items and whatnot and alliances, this site literally dies with a huge gasp. The noble courtiers are killed. They are then placed into all of the aguadas. The king himself is literally placed face down in the mud and covered up, and that is the end of the elites at the site. So, and we actually have figurines from the center, the royal aguada, and they are a reflection of those elites as well. And we have beautiful imagery of women in as their hairstyles would be as you would walk into the royal court in Kong Quen. Let's see, I think I'm taking a little too long here, so let me go ahead and keep going forward. Sorry, I want to make sure that Michelle has enough time. So I've talked about sampling. Keep going. So looking at collections, and especially collections in museums, as well as museums that are in university systems, make all the difference in the world for students and their ability to get into the business of archaeology. I was going to go through this as far as the what the Burkitt collection at the University Museum in Pennsylvania, the Art and Archaeology Museum, but I think we're running out of time. But basically, the Burkitt collection was created in the early 1900s. Robert Burkitt. This is not the way to be a student, but basically he came to Alta Verapaz region, and because of the growth of museums and the need to put objects in museums, Robert Burkitt was actually was the assistant to help George Byron Gordon, the director of the Pennsylvania Museum of Anthropology and Archaeology. Basically, he was able to pay his years down there by sending objects back up to Mr. Gordon. And so everybody says that, Burkitt came for tea and stayed forever in the Alta Verapaz. Let's go ahead. So we can also see in figurines warfare, signs of warfare and slavery. Go ahead. We usually see slavery by the bundled captives, but this one from the Alta Verapaz region actually shows the warrior beheading a captive. We also have different variations of how women and the dual figurines are actually presented. Additionally, the couple figurine is thought of as being the virgin moon goddess and the sun god, and the sun god is old, and it's also kind of a comedic thing, comedic intention. Within this one, she's kind of aligned with the maize god. It's kind of implied with the corn in her hand and the principal bird deity. So we're not sure how she's aligned, but it's quite fun. It's a different presentation. We also have acts of ritual, which is quite fun. This one is from Chama, and I was able to find a comparator in the Salinas de los Nueve Seres collection. This also is presented in polychrome form, and so he's a dancing jaguar, and what I think I'm seeing is that this is the nocturnal transition of day and night. You have the deer antler right on the side to his on his right, holding it, and you have the jaguar mask. So jaguars are usually active during the night, the deers during the day. So you also have the netting of the clowns. So we may have multiple ideas of what's going on with this particular figurine. We also have animals. Owls are very well represented within different sites. And it's also one of those animals that they actually, I think, care more for they're not just for eating. These are animals that are cared for within the family. Royal women they display all sorts of embellishment, double strand jade necklaces. You are proper if you have a fan. So different versions of this noble character. It's quite fun to see. We also have warriors, jaguar warriors. We have different versions of, again, on the side you have him holding a jaguar pelt. At Conquin we have a jaguar tail coming out of the body. And this is also present, the scarification is also present in examples from Haina. We also have versions of gods. This is God El. He is the ruler of the underworld. He is always known for his principal bird, or his principal bird owl on top of him, on his sombrero. And from both the Burkitt collection and from Conquin, I actually have these pieces as well. So I want to switch real quick, but I want to come back to how we see how this is a small scale indices of a wide scale phenomena. In 1965, Bob Rands and Barbara Rands said that there were only a few mortuary burials in the Maya region that contain figurines. At the moment, I think we have 5 or 6, depending upon how you define it. But what is really interesting is, this is no longer what was thought was a Haina affectation, the western island to the west of the Yucatan, is now a prevalent pattern within the central Maya region. For me, I have the most southernmost expression of this mortuary pattern, and go ahead. Yes, Miss Dr. Rich will be talking about that very shortly. Go ahead, next one, please. And in Homul, 2011, Ryan Mongaluzzo was able to find another example in the center, I think it's the west part of the elite palace in Homul. This particular burial actually had pomaceia shells, as well as surrounding of the figurines. Let me show that one, that set to you. Really pretty. What he was able to find was the flute that indicates the maize god, two ball player figurines, as well as a shaman or a wizard that's actually in calling, having the mouth open. Additionally, at the site of Pakpatun, there, Kong Chong actually found another one over to the southeast of the palace. This is a burial in an elite structure. It has 8 attendants as well as a ruler that has a jaguar sitting underneath a jaguar temple, one other figurine, and then a seated figure. Go ahead. Yes. The one on the right, actually, there's another example from Tikal that's in the museum, and this one's very cute because it's actually showing the goddess Ishel in her rabbit form. So, and it's also a ball player. So there are certain particular patterns that we can see that are coming out of these disparate mortuary examples. So first, that we're really getting a sense of that there are children or subadults that are being interred with these pieces. Mine actually is a subadult. I believe there is a child in Michelle's burial. In the Pakpatun, that one's a child as well. But these are very elite children. So what's going on with that? Is this like the first lineage and it's lost, and they are trying to do rituals to regenerate that lineage? Another is that with the way that when you see museum pieces, they are out of context, and it's unfortunate because we're seeing right now for the first time the idea of there are multiple meanings within a burial feature, and with these figurines we can actually see that there's the multi-level meanings, meaning there's of course the quadripartite universe is how the Maya actually view their systems, and but we're also seeing air, sea, land, water. So there's a sense of duality. Additionally, there's also gaming and boxing, as well as courtiers, and so there's gaming. And there's also this idea that they're being observed. The whole that the figures and the way that their imagery is constructed, like in Pakpatun, you had 8 courtiers, the same 8 courtiers looking in on the burial. Mine actually has a warrior that's looking in on the burial. And then there are others that are doing to create an opening to the underworld. So let me finish up. Here's the part of everything. This is life. They also show dogs. And go ahead. Birds, all their natural environments. So we've got dogs, humans, gods. Go ahead. Wheeled figures. Oh, and that's okay. That's fine. So, it's not totally Douglas Adams, but the way the Maya exist, we do see how they... there are glimmers of what they had meaning in their life, meaning in their daily life, meaning in the way that how they wanted to be part of the underworld. And through technical studies, we can actually see the interaction between possibly the attendants of the different ceremonies. So can you turn back Thank you. So just for the students, to get you started on your research, I'll leave that for everybody. Thank you very much for your time today.